Thanks so much for coming here to this event. So, who am I? Well, I want to answer this question because it's not important. The important thing is that today I'm here to help you to see the world through your eyes. So, for 2 hours, I'll be you, and if you trust me enough, you'll be me by the end. So you'll also be able to see the world through my eyes. So I'll be everyone, but since I don't know you, I'll also be no one. And my life is anyway just one big contradiction in every sense possible. My age. I have the idealism of a 19-year-old, the energy of a 29-year-old, the wisdom of a 49-year-old, the smartphone skills of a 59-year-old, as all my friends can verify, and the discipline of a 9-year-old, which my company can verify. I was born a male, as you can see, and I had the typical, male beginnings in life, playing around, being very competitive. Everything was about games and sports. Until I realized that there's more to life than that. So in the last 15 years, I have been developing my so-called feminine superpowers. So seeing life in a more fluid way, understanding that people are more important than processes and goals and success, and doing things without knowing why. So the competitiveness in me and these new superpowers were always in this tension, which resulted in where I am today. And how do I approach money? Well, I'm kind of both rich and poor. I'm rich because I have an 8-figure net worth, and I'm poor because I have no money in the bank. In fact, I even have some debt. So everything is a mess in my life. And I try to be like water and adapt to this mess in a very dynamic way, making every day different. My company is one for the ages. It's both brilliant and idiotic. It's idiotic because I run it like an idiot, and it's brilliant because it's, in spite of that, it's somehow developing and growing, and after 12 years, it's now 120 people. It has an 8-figure valuation. I'm still the majority shareholder. And the company is just, for years it was a sales company with no salespeople. Now we have salespeople, but we still don't have marketing. Our product is not a product, it's actually useless. We're just trading assets. We don't make the world better or worse. We don't create value. It's just profitable. It's something we do for money. I can describe what my company does with the following joke. There was a billionaire flying on a plane, and next to him was a blonde. The billionaire was super bored. And he asked the blonde, let's play a game, I'm very bored. The blonde was not into it. The billionaire said, let's play this game. I ask you a question, you ask me a question. Whoever cannot answer the other's question, we'll give each other $5. Blonde was still not into it. Then the billionaire said, okay, let's play the same game, but if you cannot answer my question, I'll give you... Let's not mess this up. So, if you cannot answer my question, you give me $5. If I cannot answer your question, I give you $500. Blonde was, okay, this one I played. So, billionaire asks the blonde a question, she cannot answer, she gives him $5, and then she asks the question, what is the animal that climbs the mountain on 4 legs, but then comes down the mountain on 3 legs? The billionaire was a bit baffled, thought, couldn't come up with an answer, asked the blonde, can I Google? She said, yeah, sure, feel free. He Googled, no answer in Google, then he asked ChatGPT, nothing helps. And he gave her $500 and said, well, what is the fucking animal? And she said, I don't know, and gave him $5. So that's the closest I can get to the business model of a company that you can get. Basically, we invest into assets that we don't know what they're worth, and some of them sell. We don't know if we call good assets or bad assets. It's just that some of them sell sometimes. It's kind of the opposite of data-driven. And it works. What's with me and people? I have been a mentor and coach since I was 15 because I was playing chess and I was a chess coach. And all of this was largely a fail because my students in chess, they didn't become very strong players, most of them even quit chess. And the people I mentored, they didn't show a lot of progress for many years. But then, after many more years passed, I asked them, and they said that I helped them tremendously. And I was like, but you didn't move in life at all. That, no, you helped me in spite of that. So who knows? Is it a fail? I never studied psychology, but I was kind of into psychology since I was 8, because I started playing chess at 8, including in tournaments, including for money. I earned my first money from chess tournaments while being 8 years old. And chess is, like all individual sports, a very psychological sport. There's a battle on the board, but there's also a mental battle, a battle of confidence. So I developed this feel for psychology, because if you don't have this feel, you cannot handle the ups and downs of a chess game well, and you become your own worst enemy. I was my own worst enemy for a long time in chess, but eventually chess helped me with my own psychology, and then helped me to understand how psychology works in some regards. And romantic love, not quite there. Why? Because I developed a very good capacity to love, but the woman I loved almost never loved me back, and I was continuously friend-zoned through all of my life. I'm like the definition of the friend-zoning process. Of course, not always. I had some great relationships, but the friend-zoning thing is very definitive for me, because it turns out that in spite of all culture, being friend-zoned is the best thing that can happen, especially if you're male, because I will explain now how men work. Men work the following way. You have 70% of your energy, and you can use it for whatever you want, and then you have another 30% of your energy that's only dedicated to mating. You can picture it like this. A man, you can ask him, how much can you run? And he said, 10 kilometers. Then you say, okay, run 10 kilometers. Man runs 10 kilometers and collapses on the ground exhausted. Then you tell the man, well, the most beautiful woman in the world is waiting for you after 5 kilometers, 5 more. Man gets access to the 30% of energy that is only for this, gets up and runs another 5 kilometers. That's how men work. So, when you're friend-zoned is the only moment in a man's life where something happens in biology and you get access to this 30%. And suddenly you feel like you have all the superpowers possible. You can do anything, absolutely anything in this moment, because it's 30% more doesn't sound a lot, but what actually happens is that you have calibrated your daily in and out of energy, and someday you have 67 from 70, someday you're 63, and some you're like 75, and you're exhausted because you're 5% over your limit, but you get 30 more, and suddenly you are like, have an excess of energy that you can do anything with it. Creativity, new things in life, learning, education, entrepreneurship, the world is yours. So being friend-zoned is extremely important for success, it turns out. And all of these things has helped me to be more fluid, more adaptive, and more motivated in my life. How does progress happen in my life? It happens due to having zero self-discipline. Discipline is bad. Self-discipline is really detrimental to real, large success, and I believe so is the tendency to use willpower. Goals also, I don't think, are helpful, because they can only lead you to places where you think you can go, the things you think you can achieve, but the things you don't know you can achieve, you can never set up as a goal. And tracking progress, as we'll see further, is also not a great idea if you aim really high and want to achieve greatness. So, what is the person that really dislikes this? Is the CFO of our company. So, if anyone here is a CFO and an accountant or really deals with this, they can cover their ears now, because I'll tell something that I will tell something that really will shatter their world. But I was running an 8-figure company, not only without an ERP, but also without Excel. So I had all the numbers in my head, but they were also not numbers. It was just a feel of like more money and less money. So one month I was like, things are going good, we'll spend and invest more money. And then the other month was like, things are not going so great, cut a bit on spending. And the thing that that would show me if my judgment was right is, are we able to pay our salaries with no stress? If it was like a little stress, it was fine, because then we are running the exact line of being effective, because money in the bank is useless. Money is like blood, it has to go around. And when we paid our salaries on time, but with like tiny stress, it was perfect. When the stress was high, it was obviously not ideal. And when there was no stress, it's also not ideal. It means that we are getting into a comfort zone. And after 12 years, so about 140 months of doing this, somehow we always paid our salaries on time, which means that it can somehow work if you believe it will work and if you follow good principles about money flows. So, as you can see, I'm quite a unique case here. Genetics, upbringing, professional life started at 8, but personal life had a very slow start. I was moving around in different schools, so I had to become like 14 to have real friends. And then I've discovered the concept of friends, but then I learned out that I was hopelessly behind in discovering the concept of woman. So it was all a very geek journey, messy stuff. But somehow this gave me intuition, and this intuition combined with a lot of luck made sure that I failed upwards. The things that came later in life somehow became more real, more mature, and it was all a journey upwards. Although this was not what my parents thought when I quit university at 21 with no plan for life. They didn't see my journey upwards there, I can tell you that. Also, they also worked both in the university I quit, which let's say I brought shame to the family. So, what really was the growth? Where did I go upwards? It was in one regard, deep understanding. Deep understanding is what really matters in life, because everything somehow comes from understanding. And today's idea is to get my understanding and somehow pass it to you, so you don't have to go through 30 years of failure, because you may not fail upwards, and 30 years is a lot of time. So what is deep understanding? How does Google work? This comparison will really help you understand what is deep understanding. Google has to search in 1/10 of a second in the whole of internet, which is more than 500 billion web pages, images, and videos. It's an insane amount of data, more than your brain can imagine. And they somehow do it. And it's very fast. It's not like ChatGPT thinking for 5 seconds. Google is really fast. So how do they do it? First, obviously, they cannot search in the internet in real time, so they take the internet and make a copy on their own servers. But then, how do you search in this copy? The copy is still huge. So what they do is they have an index. An index is something that shows what is where, what piece of data is where, and how the pieces of data are related. And this index is what is helping Google to search so fast in the very large portion of the internet. And now the real question is, how do you create your index? Because Google copies the internet, But you are not much different, because when you are born as a baby, you know very little about the world. You have something embedded in your genes, but you are quite close to being a blank slate. Like, not entirely, but quite close compared to your adult life. So how is your index created? You also copy from the world, but you copy the data. You copy like the web pages, the images, the videos, and a lot of other stuff that your senses can take. But how do you create your index? What are the building blocks of your index? There's a biological part, but it's very outdated because you evolved in the Stone Age. Life was completely different. Then you have a formative part, mostly by your parents when you are young, which is random because your parents can be anyone. And then there's the cultural part. But the cultural part is very biased because culture does not give the same attention to things of the same importance. And culture is just an evolution, a fight of ideas, and culture as an evolutionary process doesn't give a fuck about you. That's the problem, because anything that's evolution is just reality changing over time. And of course, this is a force that is not in any way caring about you. It's to the cultural evolution, you are completely meaningless, indifferent. So, the cultural part is often ignored because, okay, psychology deals with if you got trauma from your parents. Evolutionary biology deals with how life now is different than when we evolved, like 100,000 years ago in the cave. But culture cannot see its own blind spots. If culture is uninterested in something, it's just not there, because culture is driving the interest. So this is the part which my NGO, I Grow Younger, addresses, because it's the blind spot. And if we, as an organization, try to cover this blind spot, we can try to cover this hole left by culture. And this is not cool for us because we never get viral, we never have the cultural forces behind us, but it's very much needed for the benefit of the world. So, what turned out, your index is flawed because its building blocks are all flawed, and your index has only two things that it really cares about: coherence, so you don't go crazy, and compliance, so you don't get cast out of the tribe. Both are super bad for you. And everything else is not a priority. Objectivity, connection to reality, not a priority at all, sorry. So, is your identity flawed? So does this make you broken? Well, no, because there are many other things with you which are probably great. Your dreams, your values, these things are good. So what is then wrong? What is broken by this flawed process? It's the relations inside your brain. So the driving forces, the effects, the key events, what are the cornerstone things that really define how things in your brain work? This is a mess, the relations. Your wants may be good, but how you get there is the problem. The problem is compounded by this, that you are trying to copy the index. You are a copying machine, you're born into this world, copying stuff from everywhere, trying to remix it, but there are a lot of copied parts that remain just copied, not really deeply understood by you. So people trying to copy the index from other people is a big problem, because the other indexes are flawed and you only see the parts of them that other people want to show you. If you go to Instagram or Facebook, you only see those parts that people want to show you, so you never get the complete picture of anyone's life. It's very hard to get a complete picture of anyone's life, and even if you could, it's not your own, and even if you could, it's still a flawed index, because all of our indexes are basically flawed because the building blocks are not the right ones. So, what makes it even worse? The flawed index causes your data to be flawed. So if today Google's server has a hard drive failure and they lose their index, they still have the data, they have copied the data one-to-one from the internet and they still have the data. But your brain doesn't work like it. Every time you get information from the work, and anytime you have input, the input is changed, is refracted the way it gets into your brain because your index has a filter and it changes it so it doesn't like clash with your identity or anything else that would make you lose the coherence or the compliance. And this way, because the index is flawed, you also get the data flow, including often your own memories. So then you get into this place where you cannot really know what was real, what is real about the world, sometimes even about you. So this is a big problem, and often in medical training and in other settings where it's very important to be close to reality, the main focus is training the doctor's perception. Very true also about therapists. How do we fix this? How hard is it to build an index? So, first part, tame biology. Your biological instincts do not bring you closer to reality. They bring you closer to survival, and they are meant to be used in a very high danger environment. So you have to tame biology so you get closer to reality. How did I tame biology? Well, a reminder how friend-zoned I was. So check. Then you have to understand psychology. You have to be slow, deep, fluid learner. Psychology is very fluid. There's a lot of quantities, not so much structure. So this requires having tamed biology, so you don't have the urge for structural truth, and being mindful about your own experiences. So since I had so much exposure to psychology in my life due to chess and being a coach and mentor, and now being a leader in the company, I also understand a lot of psychology. I don't have the formal education, but I have the feeling. So check. You need to defy culture by running your own life, experimenting. This is very important so you gather more data for your intuition and you don't fall into these culture traps. I'm a rebel by nature, so check. You need to have high pattern recognition skills, which is a combination of nature and nurture. So if you are familiar with the DISC, D-I-S-C, framework, which is very often used in HR, for example, I am a C, so the pattern recognition is my natural power, and also playing and learning so much chess, which is basically all about patterns, very much expanded my brain's ability to do deep pattern recognition, very slow and very deep. So definitely check. And have a small ego is very important, so you can admit mistakes and improve. So friend zoning also took care of that. And basically, talking about the small ego, who has the best index? Somehow it's me. It's not that it was my life's goal or something, but I'm just a product of my circumstances here. So, this index is coming here by storm into your life. Whether you like it or not, you're already here. So unless you want to run out the door, it's coming. This talk will challenge everything you believe in for a lot of you. So it will trigger a lot of defensive mechanisms. So you may feel like less worthy because of decisions you made in your life. You may feel defensive, you might want to block some of the concepts, some of the information. You may actively disagree with a lot of stuff. That's all fine, that's normal, that's the expected reaction. In psychology, when everything that is even a small part of your identity is challenged, that's the reaction. So it's normal, just let it be, it's fine. So, I'm sure that when you imagine a successful person, financially successful, that's what you imagine. So, but in reality, we are all so far behind in our potential. All of us are at less than 5%. Financially, creatively, every one of us can have billions of dollars and one world-changing idea a day. It's absolutely possible. There's nothing in the way except for doing more and more of the right things. The thing is that we are all very much behind, and so we are all in the same boat. The fact that I have an 8-figure company doesn't mean anything. We are much more the same here, me and you, than we're different. That's very important, because when people meet successful people, they have like this picture in their head that these people must be super smart, or always take the right decisions, or have amazing work ethic. Like in my math and science school, where I was from 8th to 12th grade, there were real geniuses, and that's why when I learned I'm not one. And I will not talk about my work ethic because... So, the best index. There will be many moments here that I will say will bring like a small storm or a big storm in you, and that's okay, because here we're planting seeds. That's the thing that will start changing a life, hopefully some of yours, in a good way. And I'm not asking you for anything, even to trust me with all of the things that I will tell you. I'm here to give, and if everything is a fail, we still smile. How do you know that it's not some genius A/B tested 1,000 times sales speech? How do you know that this is not a cult? You know, all legit questions. So first, we're not asking for any money. There's no direction of manipulation in the concept of I Grow Younger, and everything is optimized for your freedom. So it's basically the opposite of a cult. And our content in I Grow Younger is open, it's completely free. In fact, I have spent a huge amount of money, of my personal money, so that it is free. And I have no regrets doing this. I feel it's the right thing. So, are you ready to plant some seeds? If the agricultural revolution was up to you, we'd still be chasing deers in the forest. Ready to plant some seeds? Okay. So, here we have, this model has never been shown before, like anywhere. Your life is a wardrobe. You open it, all of the stuff in your life is inside. You have all kinds of stuff. So, what's the difference between normal self-help, therapy, mindset coaching in its best versions, and I Grow Younger? So here's the difference. That's your life. In classical self-help, if you have a problem, see this small part here, it has your running shoes, which are in the wardrobe instead of on your feet and you're running outside. If you have a problem, you want to fix it. What do? You just try to do it somehow. Maybe you take the shoes and lead them to the door. You do something that will help you. You do something on the surface, let's say. And in the end, someday you pick up the shoes, you go out running. Does it work? Sometimes. It's better than nothing. So, what is therapy? Therapy is looking what is keeping your shoes in the drawer. So, what are the deep reasons that you don't go out and run? Looking for fears, looking for trauma. Therapy is sometimes effective, sometimes not. The problem with therapy is that it somehow sees people, some modalities more, other modalities less, but in general sees people as a bag of problems. So it's not very optimistic. It can work for some people, it may not work for others. Probably if you choose the right kind of therapy and it's not just talk therapy but something more experiential, it will work, but it's still kind of not the whole picture here, because it's focusing on the negative. What is mindset coaching? Okay, you go to a mindset coach. The coach will not deal with your childhood trauma, they will deal with your bright future. So they say, okay, what do you want from life? And you say money, freedom, love, whatever. Coach is looking into your wardrobe is a mess. Coach say, okay, let's empty this, streamline it to your goals, your directions in life, and put it back together in a way that it somehow aligns with your interest. Is this good? Yeah, I mean, I don't see how it can bring any harm unless you just really try to structure it way too much. But it's a way to try to go forward. The problem with each of these three approaches is that this is not the full picture. Because, a reminder, that when you evolved, your wardrobe looked like this. And then it looked like this. Then it looked like this. Then like this. Then like this. Then like this. And the problem is that all of our modern society is designed for a wardrobe that looked like this. Industrial revolution shit. So, this was one of the worst times in human history in terms of happiness. Economic and demographic factors pushed people into the cities to look for work. The people were brutally exploited in mines, factories, working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, children too. It was a very bad time for human flourishing. It was good for humanity because it produced a lot of technology and a lot of progress. It was very bad for the individual human. The problem is that this was the time where the world became very structured, and we have inherited this structure and this desire to exploit the nature and a lot of other things that are bad we inherited from the time of the Industrial Revolution. So, basically, you can have whatever you want in your wardrobe, but society wants you to have this. And this is a problem. Society wants to turn you into a factory while you are a human. So, this is your wardrobe today. It has a lot of different things. It has these devices, unfortunately, it has your phone, but everything here is very structured, very controlled. And we have forgotten that this is not the full picture. Because on the other side of this wardrobe, there's another in the back, that we have forgotten that it exists. And in this wardrobe, the only thing there is 7 blankets. Why blankets? What are the blankets? Well, your brain has the capacity to rewire itself, which science can explore, but from your point of view, it's magic, because it's the structure of life and the structure of you changing with no explanation, no visible reason. It's basically the same as the magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. From your point of view, it's magic. And the rewiring of the brain is mostly done in the direction of removing some barriers and expanding your capabilities. And because there are 7 families of barriers in your life, we have these 7 blankets to represent the magic. Everything in the front of the wardrobe represents the things in your life that you can define and touch. The 7 blankets represent the magic. Are they? It's possible with AI. So, what are the blankets? You have the blanket of self-love. The blanket of self-love makes sure that even when you are alone, which is not natural for a human because we are social beings, even when we are alone, even when we have nothing to be happy about, we still feel okay. We don't go into downward spirals. We take good care of ourselves. Basically, the self-love blanket is when we feel hurt, even if we are alone. Then we have the unconditional love blanket, which is, it hugs us together with other people, it makes us feel whole with other people. Then we have the meaning blanket, which is about our connection to the world. For example, we may help a homeless person, even though we don't know them. And we can help someone in the other part of the world, which we will never see, which we will never know. And this blanket, even if we try to give it to someone, it always comes back. So this is another magical blanket. Then we have the responsibility blanket. It's about doing stuff. It's related to action. It's like a superhero cape. Then we have the freedom blanket. This is like the magic carpet from Aladdin. It just brings us to anywhere we want to go. And then we have the growth blanket, which is just more of the same. For example, we can have more freedom blankets if we have the growth blanket that can carry other people around. And then we have the deep understanding blanket that always shows us what we need to learn, to know, and to grow. The very interesting thing about the blanket is that although they are kind of separate, they are also connected. So when you try to pull one blanket out of the wardrobe, you always kind of take them over, at least a few. And in the end, all the blankets come on top of you, and that's good because the blankets love you and love each other, so they perfectly complement. So, the blankets are extremely important because they carry the most important things in life, the ones that you cannot define. And what is I Grow Younger? I Grow Younger incorporates some self-help stuff, some therapy stuff, and some mindset coaching stuff, but also it deals with the blankets. So dealing with the blankets is super tricky because the blankets are there, like you cannot destroy them, you cannot create them, they're just there. So it's very hard to do any kind of operations with them. So what can you do with the blankets? You can do three main things, which I Grow Younger tries to do. First, take the back doors of this wardrobe and you rip them off. There's no reason to have your blankets behind the door. This will be super stupid. Keep the most important, most magical, most beautiful part of your life behind the door. Just rip the door and make it go away. Number one. Yeah, without a door. They're always available. So, number two. A very dangerous thing is that you may forget that the blankets exist. It just gets consumed by all of the items in the front, and you forget that the blankets exist. You get sworn in work, in processes, in bad times, in arguments, in toxic relationships. There's so many different ways to lose sight of the blankets. Structure, basically, if you get swallowed by structure somehow, then you can lose sight of the blankets. Basically, if you get here and this can get bigger and deeper on only things and work and processes and focus, and you may forget that the blankets exist. This is why I Grow Younger installs these mirrors, so you can always see that the blankets are there. If you always see that the blankets are there, you never forget they exist, and you don't lose touch with the important things in life. And the third part is that when you get stuck here, and then here in your phone, then you need a panic button. The panic button is a button where when you get deep in the front part of the wardrobe and you don't have the energy to basically get out of there, you push the panic button and it ejects you at the front. And then, because of the mirrors, you remember that the blankets are there and you can rebalance. And in the presentation later, we see what we do for each of these things. You have to be careful because religions and ideologies may want to give you a fake Trojan horse blanket that is like your blanket, but it's foreign and it serves someone else's agenda. So you should be careful. But this is basically the only risk of the blanket, is not to take fake blankets from outside. Yours are everything you need. And there is one more very important thing. Your brain has two types of cells, which I will explain to you, and in super expert terms, there are neurons and non-neurons. So the neurons are the cells that give signals and that fire. And the non-neurons are cells that help the neurons do their work and support them. The most important non-neuron type of cell is called astrocytes, astro because they look like a star, and they basically wrap around the neurons, and they have a few functions. They feed the neurons, they take away waste products from the neurons' activity, but even though the astrocytes are not neurons, they cannot think. They encode the state of the brain. Basically, it's your environment, like hormonal levels and glucose levels and many other stuff, then the astrocytes as a buffer, and then the neurons. So, whenever something happens in your environment and you get into these loops of like emotions, thoughts, experiences, actions, everything in a circle, the astrocytes are a very important role in this circle because they are a stabilizer. You know, the neurons fire and the firing goes very fast, while on the other hand, rewiring the neurons is very slow. So the neurons either work at amazingly fast speed or at like slavishly slow speed. There needs to be some baseline in between. So the astrocytes have a slow baseline kind of function where they take data from the blood, the environment, and the neurons, because they see when the neurons fire. They don't know like exactly what they fire and what they calculate and what they estimate, but when they see when they fire, and one astrocyte can connect to up to 2 million neurons and can see the overall activity of a part in the brain. So the astrocytes basically accumulate a lot of data and encode a state of the brain, and they can also communicate within each other and have these slow waves, which are calcium ions are used for this, where the astrocytes basically say to the neurons if we are safe and what are the conditions around. And whenever the neurons want to rewire or to strengthen pathways, for example, to create memory, the astrocytes are the one giving the green light. So no brain rewiring can happen without the astrocyte layer. Why am I talking about all of this? Because the astrocytes have a very specific things they look for in the environment. And danger for the astrocytes is not the same as danger for like neurons, not the same as danger for the thinking part of the brain. For example, it's like very primitive, but very important because it encodes the state of your brain at any given moment. For example, if you're one of those people who likes to count their steps, measuring success for you, counting your steps, is not in any way related to danger. So for your psychology, it's okay. You're doing your steps and everything's fine. But the astrocytes are very biological. So we're talking about pure biology here. And when we evolved, the only times we had to measure success was when something was important. And when was it important? When it was dangerous. So basically, when you measure success, you're creating biological stress in your organism because of the astrocytes. And if you very much spend time in the front part of the wardrobe, and you do all these modern things like measuring success a lot and trying to improve incrementally, what's happening is that the astrocytes get stuck in this loop where first you get this like small danger signals in the astrocytes, but then it goes on, and you never get a moment when you don't measure success. All of these grinding people that wake up 5 a.m. every morning and do everything by the clock, this is super stressful for the astrocytes. It's not normal. It's not normal in nature for this to happen. So in the end, you get quite stressed on a purely biological level. So not only you're in the front and far away from the blankets, but you get all of these danger signals that prevent your brain from rewiring. And if it's one thing that we optimize for I Grow Younger, it's positive change that is permanent. So good rewiring of the brain. On the other hand, if you're with the blankets, it's totally different, because with the blankets, you don't have measuring of success. And when you don't have measuring of success, but you do get some novelty, you do get some interaction, you do get connection with people, you do get growth, the astrocytes have the optimal state, which is uncertainty, yet safety. This is what you should be aiming for. Not complete comfort zone and safety. Uncertainty, yet safety is your optimal state. And this generates a very good astrocyte state, and they allow the neurons to rewire. Rewiring neurons means rejecting and casting away your limiting beliefs and even healing trauma. So extremely important to get this green light. So how does positive change happen in people's lives? After the wardrobe, let's try to get a bit more abstract. You now have the feel of how it works, but now we get concrete and we see what we can actually do in life. Well, I have a model, it's highly scientific. Your life is like a bag. Every problem you have inside is like a lock. And every life event, thought, emotion, everything is like a key. Since this bag is your subconsciousness, you cannot look inside. Drop keys, and there's a lot of things going on, and very rarely a key enters into a lock. When it enters, some rare rewiring happens, and you have progress. It happens like once in a million. So, what can you do? You can put in more keys. Your therapist is a key expert. He's trying to put the best keys, but even he or she is like 1 in 1,000. Has success 1 in 1,000. The therapist can talk for 1 year in a person, and after 1 year you have this phrase that suddenly the client is, and he gets it, and then change happens. But there's a lot of keys, so what can you do better? Well, better keys obviously, but also more keys, so living a more dynamic life, more shaking the bag, definitely helps. And let's see where this more comes from. Nothing in life happens without driving forces. Sorry to be Captain Obvious, but that's kind of true. You need some push or pull for anything to happen. And let's simplify it to the families of these forces. Love is the giving force when you're opening up, and fear is when you get blocked in. And the universe also contributes with its two families. Chaos is the force that changes stuff, and structure is the force that preserves and keeps it the same. For example, biology is a very beautiful dance of chaos and structure. Chaos is everything that's going, but DNA is the structure that keeps the good patterns and tries to make them better. So let's put them here on this compass: human forces, universal forces. And we have combinations. We have fear and chaos, or we can have fear and structure, or love and structure. We have these 4 combinations. And fear and chaos is that instincts and delusions don't have control of our life, not a nice place to be. Fear and structure, you're trying to get some control, but you're still driven by fear, so you're closed in. It's not cool. And then love and chaos is where creativity and a lot of good things happens. This is basically where the blankets are. And love and structure is where science and seeking the truth is. So, what happens when people try to improve their lives? Let's label them. Okay, now they're labeled. And people think it works like this. You go from worse to mediocre, and then you think that you will go from mediocre to good. Because this is how somehow we think. However, this cannot work. In fact, it can never work in this way. Why? Because when you see the labels, you see that to get from fear to love, you have in this moment structure, but structure is not something that will make a big change in your life, switching from fear to love. Structure is a preserving force, so it cannot facilitate this change. So this cannot happen. So what happens instead? This. Basically, people just go around in the bottom, they feel bad, then they buy Jordan Peterson's book, he tells you that you have to tidy up your room or something, so get structure, basically. He calls it order, a word I hate even more. So you get to mediocre, get some of your life under control, but this is what is called in mathematics a local maximum. It's not the global maximum you want, it's a local maximum where you get locked and you have no progress. How does progress happen? On the other side, from worse to great. Doesn't make any sense, but this is how it works. Why? Because on the other hand, you have chaos, and chaos is a driving force, a real driving force that can change from fear to love. And we will examine why this works in more detail. And you kind of realize that there's a problem with stuff like fake news, people being totally ignorant. Well, no one gets into this fourth place up there. That's why. Because in order to get to love and structure, so love the truth and have the structure of understanding to get it, you cannot go one way. You can only go the other way, and it's the last place you will end. So, not a lot of people who end there. This is why critical thinking suffers and all of this. What is your identity? It's simply you going around in those circles. That's it. Everything in your life, like your life as a whole, but also the smaller parts of your life, have these paths around. And the sum of these paths define what makes the current you. But the future you is not entirely defined. You can do some tricks to influence it. What can we do? Life is a dance of doing and understanding. So, what is more important, doing or understanding? Where do we fail? These are the building blocks of progress, so let's examine this in detail. If we have doing without understanding, well, we are an idiot basically, but we get somewhere. Maybe we get to bad places, but every experience, even bad one, is important. So wrong direction, approach and speed, but this is how we learn to get the right direction, approach and speed. And eventually we get understanding, so this is not the problematic part. Every young entrepreneur is with the doing without understanding part. Understanding without doing does not exist, because if you have understanding, you will know that you should be doing something. So, where's the problem? Why do people get stuck? The problem is that you cannot have fake doing with real understanding, because doing is doing, it cannot be fake. But you can have real doing with fake understanding. And that's how people get stuck. You do stuff, and then the index, remember the index is flawed, it's interpreting the experience of this doing in a flawed way, and you get the real doing, but then the fake understanding inside. And there's no force, no driving force that is natural to get you out of this. So this is very important point where we focus our efforts. How to have real understanding. If you have real understanding, you get out of this, and your life is immediately much better. So, what is the problem with the understanding? The problem with the understanding is that we have a problem with estimating life's complexity and the complexity of living it. These are two completely different things. In the Stone Age, life was extremely simple, but this was extremely complex to live. You would have to know where the herds of the bison are and how to hunt them, then how to prepare the animal, and then how to conserve the meat, and also if there are other hostile tribes that will fight for the same territory or the same animals, and also what mushrooms not to eat and what fruits not to eat, and how to manage all of the relations in the tribe, because if you get cast out of the tribe, out with a saber-toothed tiger, it's very bad for you, the chances that your genes propagate. So basically life was simple, but very complex to live. It was not only high danger, but the complexity was very high. Why? Because the tribe was on its own. There was nowhere to outsource. Modern life is the opposite. Life is extremely complex, but extremely easy to live, because we have outsourcing. You don't go hunting in the forest, you go to the store and you buy food. So somehow it's the other way around. And life with outsourcing is not completely different than life without outsourcing. If you have life without outsourcing, you have to spend time in the front wardrobe. You have to hunt, so that's where your bow and arrow are, and you have to find food and clothes and all of this. So this is why your brain cares so much about things, because things were needed to survive. But in the modern age, you only need money to buy anything, and you need the blankets. That's all you need in modern life, like money and the blankets, if you include also health in the blankets, but the blankets are very good for health, both mental and physical. So that's all you need. And money is not a thing, it's also a flow. And the blankets also cannot be defined, so you can say that they are flows. So it turns out that we're prepared for one thing, but then it's completely the other. However, here culture comes and ruins everything. Because culture, is all about the fight of ideas, religions, ideologies, and although every ideology and religion is different, they all have one thing in common. They all say that life is complex to live. Because if life was easy to live, then you don't need someone to tell you how to do it, right? You don't need the culture, you don't need the religion, you don't need the ideology. So every ideology will tell you that life is complex to live, which is a lie, because it's no longer true. It was true for a very long part of humanity, up to very recently. This is why this part of culture and religion endured, and it kind of helped people a lot. But now it's different. The truth of today is that a self-aware, loving, intuitive, creative person needs zero systems. You no longer need this culture. So, how do we improve stuff? Well, not via culture, obviously, because it brings us back in this regard. So you need a system that kind of has a different relationship with you. A system that is not in the evolutionary fight and trying to get more territory and more resources and more people and more believers. You need a system that wants none of these, the opposite. A system that wants to give people freedom. That's why I told you that I Grow Younger is the opposite of the code, because it tries to give you the opposite stuff. It tries to give you freedom. While the code tries to take freedom away from you, I Grow Younger tries to give you freedom, even more freedom than you thought you wanted and needed. Because free people are also great for the world. So a system that tells you all systems are overrated is kind of an evolutionary suicide, but this is what the world needs, and this is why we created I Grow Younger. A system to end systems, basically. You only need the compass and a supporting system that explains everything with a compass, with a wardrobe, with simple models that everyone can understand, that are not like canonical and not closing, but are liberating. And they are ideologies and they are ideas. That's an extremely important distinction. For example, communism is an ideology. Why? Because if everyone stops believing that communist is good, if there is no communist left in the world, communist is gone. Communism is gone. It's made of the people who believe in this. Good or bad, it's made of those people. While ideals are different. Truth will exist even if no one believes in it. Fairness, justice will exist even if no one is fair. And the most important thing that we have forgot, clarity will exist even if everyone is confused. So that's our goal today, clarity. We want to get back to clarity. Being confused is bad for everyone. The great lie of ideologies, how do they perpetrate this lie that life is complex to live? They say that, this also starts with Aristotle, who had a very close saying, and a lot of Western culture is based on Aristotle. You have to find the right amount of any given thing, and you try to have that amount in your life. The golden mean. The golden mean results in culture that looks and sounds like this. Sorry for the foreigners, this is in Bulgarian, but it's not good to be translated because it's art. This is a very famous Bulgarian song in which Irina Forin, a famous Bulgarian singer, sings about the perfect woman, about how she knows exactly what is the golden mean for anything. So, when is the time for love, when is the time for war, how much makeup to wear, how things should dress be, when to laugh and when to stop, how to wear her hair, and all of this harmony. And this song brings a strong emotion. Why? Because it has inside beauty, harmony, and this feeling that we have exactly the right thing. It's this soothing feeling. So culture, via everything it does, including a lot of the art, is just pushing this narrative that a central part of life is having the perfect amount of anything. But if you think about it rationally, this model is a disaster. How do you know the right amount? How do you know how to get to the right amount? How do you know how to keep it in the fluctuations of life? And how do you know that this right amount and this right amount turned out to be a very bad combination? So, this is a disaster. This is how this looks in real life. Whoever tries to live by this model, this is the end result in your life. So, is there an alternative? Well, how would the alternative theoretically look like? Find everything that's so good in your life that you cannot overdo it. Then you maximize it with total joy and fun, and you let go of your desire to control everything else. So basically, only care about the blankets. So, is it possible? Do the relations of reality support this? Yeah, they do. But the reason that this is not mainstream is that they do today in Western countries, in democracies where there are no human rights. Before, it was a problem. The king wouldn't like it, the authoritarian leader wouldn't like it, systems would reject it because it would weaken them, and also it would not hold for women, for minorities. There will be so many problems for someone to really be themselves, because this is what the blankets are. They are you. But today, in this country, there's no reason why not to live in this way. It's just a huge, like the king is naked moment, because it's obvious, but people somehow don't admit it. It's not something that we talk about. And this is how it looks when you maximize the things that you cannot overdo. Much better life. So, what's between you and this? Well, culture. Structure and culture. And the intertwining blocks that they create. This is perpetrated and turned into a silent tradition. But what is tradition? Peer pressure exerted by dead people. That's what tradition is. So you can explore tradition, you can have joy in exploring a tradition. You don't have to respect the tradition always and in all cases. You are free to do whatever you want. So what are the traps that we get trapped in terms of tradition and culture? First one, super unobvious, beauty. So beauty is great. However, beauty triggers some biological buttons in us, and just like in the song of Irina Foreign that you saw how beautiful it was, but it was promoting the wrong model, basically, to live, beauty comes with two big traps. One is symmetry, the idea that you have to have this means and you cannot have extremes, the idea that you have somehow to be in the middle and have balance. This is total fallacy. Life is chaos. Your brain is chaotic mesh of neurons. Life is extremely chaotic and random. So the idea that you should have symmetry and balance is like, it doesn't make any sense. Basically, your index is between your brain and the world, and if one is chaotic and other is chaotic, how can you try to have something tidy in the middle? It will not work. And the other, even bigger trap is purity. So purity is the most freedom-destroying thing. If you want something to be pure, so all of the perfectionists in the audience, if you want it to be pure, like, why? Why? You're doing it as a coping mechanism. The world does not like or reward purity. Purity, however, comes with beauty, because when you see the stream, the river that is crystal clear and pure, right? Purity is just integrated into beauty. That's why it's so hard to teach it. But you can, and in many situations, you should. Cultural trap 2 is using logic to think alone. So logic is made to communicate. It runs with language, so it cannot be better than the language we use to describe it. It's a formal thing, basically. And it's made to communicate. When we communicate, it's good. Logic, argumentation, debate. If you're using logic alone, you are using something that was not made for this situation. This skill is not made to be used alone. Of course, with all of our training, with all of our education, you can get somewhere with logic, but this is only a local maximum. So logic is a very weak tool, and it's only been evolutionary conceived in order to be used in groups with communication, so that we can correct each other's logical fallacies. If you write logical fallacies in Google, you'll find a Wikipedia list of 57 or something ways that your logic goes wrong. And most of them are valid for most people. So logic is overused and overvalued. Measuring success. So measuring success is a trap. And it's a very insidious trap because it has obvious benefits, like you get incremental progress, but the costs are hidden. So you get trapped, you think it's good, in fact it's bad. Why it's bad? Well, astrocytes, balance of the two hemispheres in the brain, like they're basically neuroscientific reasons why measuring success is bad. And measuring success is something that is done in factories, not in humans. When you measure success, you become closer to being a factory, which you don't want. What's the better idea? Intuition. Sensing and having skills beyond the visible. The invisible is more powerful. Why? Well, being visible has a biological cost. In order for logic to know, for you to know where it comes from, there is a cost of having these locks in the brain. Just like there's a cost having locks in the computer. It requires space on the hard drive. In order to have locks in the brain, it's costly. That's why it's only used for specific tasks. If you use intuition, there are no locks, and intuition is much more powerful because it's freed of this constraint that you need to show how it works. It only gives you the solutions, not the path. But you need the solutions after all. So intuition works beautifully in every environment, even messy, asymmetric environments which are not good to logic. And it's super important to know that there are two separate families of intuition which intertwine. You have intuitions for structures. This is how things relate, cause and effect, stuff like this. And you have intuition for quantities. Intuition for quantities sounds very abstract, but this is a huge family of skills. For example, when you go to the shop and you get a bag of oranges and you say, okay, it's 2 kilos, that's intuition about quantities. So, the intuition about quantities is everywhere in life. All of human relationships are intuition about quantities, if they have any transactional element. So everything apart from unconditional love is intuition about quantities. How much will I give you? How much do I want to take? How much can I annoy you before you really become very annoyed? So how much am I willing to sacrifice before this is not worth it? So everything is intuition about quantities. And structure is structure, but quantities are everywhere. See, this is a very structural thing, a map of metropolitan Sofia. If you want to build this dough, you have a ton of quantities. You have how many trains, how many people, how often will the trains be. Everything becomes a quantity suddenly in the structure. So the quantities are everywhere. You cannot design a system without quantities, even if on the surface it seems like structure. Quantities are everywhere. And a very important thing, everything about your blankets is quantities. They don't have structure. Responsibility, love, unconditional love,
growth, these things don't have structure. So if you lack intuition about quantities, you will not be able to see how and feel how you grow and compare your growth to the potential growth of future you in different scenarios after different decisions. So I have a very favorite person. He's called Alexander Grothendieck, called the best mathematician of the 20th century. He was different. Even among mathematicians, he was different. He had one of the strongest intuitions in history. And when forced to work with an inadequate structure, he would just build his own. This is maths, you know, you're standing, as Isaac Newton said, on the shoulder of giants, which means that you are built upon thousands of people who are all total geniuses. And still Grothendieck would say, nah, I'll start from scratch and do better. So we're talking about an insanely intuitive person who would feel structures in just deeper and deeper than others. And he made very big advancements in mathematics. He and his students revolutionized algebraic geometry and many other fields in mathematics. So when we apply Grothendieck's approach to life, what happens? Well, you see the existing structures, they suck because they are built by imperfect people, governed by imperfect systems. Nothing is as they seem to be. Basically, people are better than structures in this world. Structures are pretty broken. And here we come to the culture trap 4. And what if the problem, the biggest problem among them all, is a structure that we take for granted? Language. What if our lack of understanding for the world is because we try to put everything in language? Language is just slow to evolve, and it's just outdated. We still use a lot of the same language we used like 100, 200 years ago, but life is extremely different now. 200 years ago, we were still fighting for survival. Today, we fight for love, meaning, and happiness. Survival is more or less a given, but we still use the same language. We still trust it, and it's becoming part of a problem. Language is rigid. It's hard and slow to change, and it's also just poorly made. Language is not the best achievement of humanity in terms of modernity. In terms of the ancient times, where like language was something new, it was something amazing. Oh, we can communicate and coordinate, we can chase the bear together in ancient times in the Stone Age. But today, language is pulling us back. Why? Because it's too slow to evolve. There are missing words which relate to stuff that would be important, stuff like the blankets. There are a lot of missing words there. Word meaning is not universal. For example, intuition means different things to different people, and it's one of the most important things in life. It shouldn't be this way. Confusion in language is amplified by relations, because a language has a graph structure, and everything is defined by something else in the graph. So there's no like axioms like in math, like you start by axioms and then you define properly and you build theorems and everything has this proper, clear definition. Language is not like this. Language is just vectors, stuff pointing to other stuff. So this means that confusion is amplified by this structure. It's poor at describing quantities, which we just found was important. It's poor with changes over time, which is one of the most important quantities, and we'll see how important it is for change. And there are trap words. So trap words are an extremely interesting phenomenon. This is one of the innovations of I Grow Younger. We still haven't proven it. We're on the planning a scientific study to prove it, but I'll tell you what it is and you will agree that it's obvious. So what is a trap word? A trap word is some very commonly used word that has a very complex meaning behind. Stuff like work, business, relationship, religion, these are trap words. What does it mean if it's trap? We all know what work is, so it's not like the things that have different meaning to different people, like intuition. The problem is that when the language center and the brain evolved, like tens of thousands of years ago, life was simple and such complex concepts like work did not exist. Work is an interchange of very different types of flows between the employee and the employer. There's money, time, trust, appreciation, education, experience, growth, so many different intertwined flows of value. This is too much for the language center of the brain to handle. Basically, there are so many vectors, so many points pointing out of the word work that a lot of neurons fire. And as you know, one of the two main goals for the brain is not to go crazy. So the brain has a system of shutting down runaway neural activity. So if a lot of neurons start to fire, the process is shut down. The astrocytes are involved in this using potassium ions, I think. And basically the electrical activity is stopped when too many neurons fire. So what happens when you hear or say the word work? Whenever it enters your brain, a lot of neurons fire, the process is shut down to prevent danger to the brain, overall danger basically, and there are only very shallow loops remaining, which remain only on, let's say, autopilot level. So if I go and ask, hey, Nikki, how is your work? And he will just say, fine. That's it. So shallow, autopilot response, no depth. And this will happen every single time. So if you want to explain to yourself why people can have 7 different jobs for 20 years and still be totally inadequate about work, cannot negotiate a salary, cannot negotiate better working conditions, cannot change a job after feeling bad at it for a whole year. That's the reason. No intuition, zero intuition about this whole family of topics will be created unless you somehow segment it and start to think inside your brain, in your intuition, your index, until you start thinking of work as a family of stuff. So not a single thing. The problem is that when it's a single word, it's not intuitive to do that. And it will probably, the stimulus will come from outside. So now when I say it to you, you think it's obvious, but if no one tells you this, you will keep being trapped in the trap word. So trap words, a big problem. We'll define what is a trap word in a minute, so you know which words are all trap words. Basically, language is just badly matching the structure of life. That's true. Life is structures, quantities, cycles, spirals, networks, a lot of stuff. Language is basically only good at describing one type of structure, where we have these objects. So it's not the best. And if you follow the flawed structure of language when exploring life, what do you get? The fake understanding that we talked about. So what's the way forward? This is the slogan of I Grow Younger. Intuition beyond language. So we somehow try to get beyond this. And here, this is the most important concept that you can have beyond language. We divide everything in the world into things that you can define and things that you cannot define. If you can put a box around it, it's a box. If you can't, it's a flow. So what are flows? Are blankets. What are boxes? All of the things in the front part of the wardrobe. Boxes and flows are extremely interesting. They're just like fire and ice. They destroy each other. If you have a flow, boxes cannot form. But if you have a box, the flows cannot start flowing. So it's exactly fire and ice relationship. You have box, you start to have more boxes. You have a flows, you start to have more flows. So it's runaway effect. There is no balance in this system. Why is that? It's because one part of your brain, the left part, deals with boxes, and another part, the right part, deals with flows. Your brain is divided in two exactly because boxes and flows have such a different structure, inherent structure, that one set of wired neurons is very good at handling boxes, like processes, like labeling, and like language. And the other part is very good at doing flows. What are flows? Where am I in the big picture? So holistic stuff. And a lot of the most important things in life are flows. And here we arrive to the conclusion that the goals are bad. I promise to tell you why goals are bad. Goals are boxes. Even if you achieve the goal, you do negative work inside because you get into the box mode. Love, meaning, intuition, creativity are all flows. So, the sad reality of the modern life is that we all love flows. We all want to be responsible. We all want love. We all want freedom. But when we don't have them, the empty space is filled by boxes. Every coping mechanism is a box. Basically, the coping mechanisms are the mother of all boxes. And the biggest one is your phone, because it's always there and it's a very addictive box. Why? It has other boxes inside, so it's like an endless going down to the abyss of more and more boxes. So, how do we do this? One instinct for life. That's all you need. The instinct is trying to get rid of the boxes, and when you get rid of the box in your open empty space, don't replace it with more boxes. Don't replace one addiction with another addiction, for example. Don't replace one bad job with another bad job. Don't replace one toxic relationship with another toxic relationship. You try to replace them with flows. Or if you cannot generate the flows, don't worry. No one can. Flows cannot be created. The blankets are already there in the back. You cannot create them. You cannot destroy them. You only need to give them space. How do you give them space? Get rid of the boxes. And the left and the right brain is what caused this. They are evolutionary origins. Boxes are meant to catch food while we still evolved as animals. So focus, box around the food, catch, eat. Where did flows come from? Like intuition. The right part of the brain was tasked with a very important goal of not being eaten. So, what does this mean? Our place in the world, potential danger, integrating risks, intuition about quantities, also intuition about structure in a more holistic sense. The right brain deals with the whole, the left brain deals with the parts. The right brain understands the world, the left brain manipulates the world. This is why the left brain, in most people, governs the right hand, the manipulating hand. So, it will be an oversimplification to say biologically that logic is in the left part of the brain and intuition in the right, but in our flawed human condition in modernity, it's pretty much right. What we do mostly is our left brain dominates the picture. It wants to achieve goals, it wants to progress, it wants to do stuff. The right brain is helpful, it provides context. Context is a very typical right brain thing, so seeing the big picture. It provides context, it helps, but what it does not do is go into the depth. So whenever you are left brain dominated, right brain helps a bit, but you don't get the depth and you don't get the blankets. All of the blankets come from the right brain, and the left brain destroys them. Your left prefrontal lobe has control loops, mechanisms that recheck stuff and measure success, and those destroy the blankets. So, in the modern world, what do you need? Much more flows. You need the blankets. And one rule to rule them all. Everything worth maximizing is a flow. The box cannot be maximized because it is fixed. So you want to maximize flows. Everything in the way of it is a box. So you only need one rule for your life. It's a rule beyond language, because some words are in the mix of the box and the flows, the boxes and the flows, and you know which ones, the trap words. That's why you fail there. Because the trap words, all of them have a mix of the flows and the boxes, and this is why proper intuition cannot be created. And this one rule basically fixes your entire life. It's like magic. Why is it magic? Because it comes from the magical part of your brain, the blankets. And if you haven't figured out by now, the front part of the wardrobe was your left part of the brain, and the back part with the blankets was the right part of the brain. And it's The reason we put it the back is that because this is how society sees it, but basically should be the front, because it's more important for the modern person. Flows help you in a magical way, but you cannot create them. So what can you do? Chaos. I will give you the super funny story about how I discovered why chaos is so invaluable in life. Me and my friends were getting home from a wedding, and one of my friends told a story. He said, my friend went to New Bulgarian University to try to enter the university. Exam is 100 questions from 8th to 12th grade, every possible subject in school. You cannot learn this for a month or for 3 months, and this person was barely set foot in school, so he was a very bad student. But he decided to give it a shot. He went there, he looked at the questions, he very well estimated his own lack of ability, and he decided to put D on all of the answers. They're like A, B, C, D, E, and he put D, 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 D 100 times. He did that. He actually did that. And then he gave the test, and it turned out the D's were a little more than the average of 20%. They were like 20-something%. And it turned out that he not only didn't have the least score, but he was also accepted into university. So this is Bulgarian University. You can get accepted with this column of D's. We were laughed so hard on this poor, uneducated boy. But then I revisited this story from time to time, and I was like, isn't there some wisdom in this? Because the guy got into university, and to this day, he doesn't know which D's were correct. I was like, can you learn something from this guy? And it turns out that you can, because what did the guy do? He enforced chaos onto reality. That's what he did. This is super hard to do. Imagine that every time you have to make some decision, for example, whether to start going to sport or to dance or to go more hiking in nature. When you have to make a decision for your life, whether to improve your life or not, imagine that every time you flip a coin, would you improve 50%? No. Why? Because you're very bad at imposing chaos onto reality. But this guy, he did it. And I was like, there's something here. Now, everyone in the audience, can you look to the person to your right? Now, can you look to the person on your left? 2 out of these 2 people are bad at change. I can assure you. 2 out of these 2 people are bad at change. Every single person is bad at change. This is the worst skill of humans. It's like an anti-skill. Basically, if you want to change, you will not have 1 out of 2. You will not have 1 out of 100. You will have 1 out of 10 in a million that will succeed, because every second is the chance to change, and it will not work. And it will not work, and it will not work. But if you manage to impose chaos onto reality, to make sure you listen to the coin you flip, then it can work. And what is this in practice? It's chaos, because chaos forces you to do random stuff. And if your life is chaos, then you will be able to change for the better. So this is why chaos and progress and flows and the blankets are inherently connected. So chaos is not part of the blankets, but it's kind of a supporting system in your life. So you will dislike chaos, but nothing will help you as much as chaos. So no boxes unless needed for a process. Of course, in our work and in our life, we have boxes all the time, but if it's needed for a process, you take it and then you leave it, it's fine. Otherwise, just give flows the power, the blankets. And there is one model that absolutely kills this system, that cheats your way into certain progress, because you remember that you cannot create the flows. But what can you do? You can go to a box with no boxes in, and in this empty space, only flows can come in, so you can cheat the system. Basically, whenever you are left brain dominated and you like planning stuff and you are stuck in the structure, you plan to go to a place which has no boxes. You plan to go to the sports, dance, evening with friends, you go in nature, and this works. This is basically how people rebalance and cope in modernity. But, as you know, I Grow Younger is all about doing good things to the extreme. We take this one to the extreme. How we can do it better? We can do it better if we have two more things. One, you have to invent the process. Sports, dances, you didn't invent. So you're copying something from outside, still good, not the same as if you invented tennis. If you invented tennis, you will play tennis with more joy than any other person in the world because you invented it. But you can invent stuff. And the other thing that really helps is perceived danger. Now you say, what is perceived danger? So perceived danger is something that seems unsafe, but it's actually safe. For example, if I tell you to go to the Vitusha mountain and get lost in a forest, is this safe? Well, yeah, there's no one there, no people, no animals, but it sounds super scary to you. It's actually safer than walking into South Park or Borisova Gradina or whatever, because here it's more danger that something might happen. In the forest, there's no one, but there's perceived danger. Perceived danger means that you will first release a bit of adrenaline, but not so much as for actual stress, but just adrenaline for focus, for solutions. And this will tell the brain this experience is important. Then you will find your way using right brain stuff because there's no boxes in the forest. And then when you find the path, what happens? After 2 or 3 hours lost in the forest, you find the path, which means that your expectations get outmatched by reality. You expect to find the path at some point, but suddenly it's in front of you. And this tricks your biology more than any other thing. So you get the right left brain stuff, the flows. You convert all of your astrocytes to help you, because you're not measuring success in the forest, you can't. There's no measuring scale. And then you get the win, because you find the path, and you find it suddenly, so you have sudden success, outmatching of expectations, so we have more than safety. We have super safety. Not expectations fulfilled, better than expectations. This is very hard to do. And then you have this small adrenaline spike that says, all of this is extremely important because we released adrenaline, do more of the same. What is more of the same? Well, having flows and winning, basically. So you trick your biology. This is a trick, and it's a master trick. You basically hack this whole system. All of the problems, they will disappear until the first sleep. You will be able to do changes in your life. You will do everything that you have barriers against much easier. And this is the time to seize the moment, do something great. So flows complement each other perfectly. Remember this picture with the blankets that were on top of the guy? Flows basically never stood in each other's way. Every flow helps every other flow. This turns out to be a big shape, but that's how it is. And you with flows basically just are immensely powerful compared to you with boxes. It's incomparable. You're more powerful in the visible, and you're immensely more powerful in the invisible. But are flows effective? Like, what about progress? What about day-to-day progress? Basically, just fuck this. Your life has a lot of days. You don't need to improve today. You need to plant the seeds to improve forever. So, effectivity will help you achieve the possible. Creativity will help you achieve the impossible. The impossible is what you want, because you have limiting beliefs, and if you manage to achieve the impossible from your point of view, basically, whatever, I can have limiting beliefs if I manage to achieve stuff in spite of them. First, they will quickly dissipate because they will be disassociated. But secondly, they are not in my way anymore. So again, I manage to cheat the system, to cheat biology. You know, biology is a very difficult enemy to have. It's always in you, it's always holding you back. It has only one weak point. It's extremely predictable. You can get it into these constructions and you can make it your ally for a while. And while it's your ally, it's the time to win. And if you understand life, if you have the understanding, then basically you turn the understanding into winning by going into these constructions where biology stops being your enemy and your weight and holding you back and starts being your ally. And the difference between someone pulling you back and someone pushing you is just immense in terms of success, achievements, and change. And what are the flows that you can maximize? There are the 7 blankets. Self-love means be one with yourself. Destroy the boxes inside, destroy the barriers inside. Unconditional love and compassion destroys the barriers to others. Meaning destroys the barriers to seeing the world as one. Responsibility destroys the barriers between you and the actions you want to take. Freedom allows all of the above. And scale or growth maxes all of the above. If you have these, you don't have to care about anything else in modern life except for basic safety. If you have this, you will have money. If you have this, you will have happiness. Remember, I didn't use the word happiness anywhere. This is because it's kind of a trap word. It's an after effect, not a driving force. These are the driving forces because they destroy the barriers in your way. And where's the intuition that will allow this deep understanding? It's everywhere. You don't have to care about this. It happens right now. It happens while you sleep. It happens all the time. It's rewiring the brain. It's the magic part. It's the blankets. It's everything in your life that you don't see. And it just works. It comes from flows, leads to the deep understanding, and leads to secondary flows such as creativity, curiosity, and searching for the truth. And over time, it leads to the thing you desperately want most. It leads to clarity. I know that all of you want clarity. You want a life that you can understand. You want to understand yourself, others, even if they're completely irrational, and the world. Maybe we can have some questions, and I'll see how we're on time, and we'll probably skip part of the rest. But these presentations will continue anyway, so even if you miss part of what we have prepared, we will have a lot more of these events because I see that you like it. I see it on your faces. You're kind of overwhelmed by the novelty and by the dissonance that some of this creates in you, but that's normal. That's normal. If you weren't, then you should be worried. Maybe we can take some questions. Yeah?
Yes, I read on the website about the reverse cheat.
Yes.
If you could say something about that.
Well, basically, self-love is very tricky. First, it's very tricky to define because not having internal barriers seems very clear in the abstract, but what does it mean? You don't see your barriers, you just feel the effects of them. So how do you destroy your internal barriers? A good definition for self-love can be done in 2 ways. In regards to your life, it's I see my life as one whole, which again is a bit abstract, but I can say it very simply. It's I like every part of my life the same. Now you can imagine what it is. So if you like your work, your sleep, your evenings, your mornings, your time with friends, your time alone, your creative times, your boring times, if you love them all the same, you have self-love. The path to self-love is basically getting more whole in your life. And reverse cheating is a method to trick your brain into self-love. Because there are 2 major things in the way of self-love. First is, of course, trauma. So if you have trauma, then you have problems with self-love because of traumatic psychology stuff. It's good to go to therapy in this case. It's good to try different things. I Grow Younger stuff will help, but also therapy, obviously, is a choice in this moment. But I have seen a lot of people who don't appear to have at least more serious childhood trauma, but have tremendous problems with self-love. And it's because their life is very symmetric. I told that symmetry is a trap. And if someone was brought out not by conditional love by parents, not like the classic explanation is conditional love. You say, okay, the parents love you only if you're successful in school, only if you are successful in sports. That's conditional love. That breeds a lack of self-love in the kid. So this is classical. But there's a more hidden way, which is if the parents say you should deserve success in life, everything in life should be deserved. If you need to always give your best because success that you did not put effort in is not real. So stuff like this leaves in the brain of the child the fact that every relation in life is symmetric. If success is not with effort, it's not real success. So when this person grows older and has to have self-love, they cannot deserve it. You cannot deserve self-love. All of the flaws, all of the blankets, they come for no reason. There's no reasoning, there's no argumentation for self-love, there's no performance can give you self-love. And if you try to get self-love with performance, you're going into opposite direction of what self-love really is. So self-love basically comes from asymmetry. You don't deserve it, but you give yourself self-love. So if your brain is wired to look at everything symmetrically, self-love is impossible to you. And reverse cheating means how to break the symmetry in your brain, which means to have obvious asymmetric stuff in your life, which the easiest way is to give undeserved tips. So you have a very, very bad experience, taxi, restaurant, cafe, you give an undeserved tip. This rewards your brain because your brain cannot survive the dissonance. Because this thing is based on purity. Your brain is living, your identity is that everything is symmetrical. If you do 20 symmetrical things this year, your brain can no longer believe everything is symmetrical. And then it says, okay, most things are symmetrical, and then it allows yourself self-love. Basically, that's the reverse cheating. It's a pattern thing.
Unexpected things.
Yeah. Yes?
One question was you touched already, and I was always wondering about it. If you cannot well define things because of the language, how will you overcome that? How will you achieve that?
You use you try to form intuition that's not based on language, which is mostly intuition about quantities and systems and things that are not properly described in language. And the trap words you avoid or dissect. And the words that have different meaning for different people, you try to get the meaning that's closest to reality. For example, intuition has more or less a scientific definition. It's not something that's coming from like the universal cosmic forces. It's a brain process. It's data crunching. So you fix or try to fix the deficiencies of language individually. There are a lot, and each of them is kind of approached in a different way. But a very important thing is if you are able to see your life as a graph going up and down, as a collection of seconds, basically, then language becomes irrelevant because this graph is not subject to language, but rather mathematics. Your graph, your chart is going up and down, and the fact that if it's going up and down is just differential equations. So we're going into math territory and away from language, which brings us much closer to reality. Actually, it may sound weird, but your body can feel differential equations. All of nature is differential equations, so you're much better biologically at this than language. Basically, a cat can feel differential equations. It may sound weird, but it cannot solve it, but it can feel it. But a cat cannot feel language. So language is like evolutionary new, and it's just poorly made. That's the sad truth. Yes?
Processes like the Sedona method that help you release tension and fear, are in this direction, and processes like the work of variability that question the structure of thought are also in this direction that you're speaking about? Or?
Yes, I would say that thoughts and emotions are kind of, I don't know, have overvalued, receive more attention than they should, because thoughts and emotions are carriers. So your brain is a prediction machine. It tries to estimate quantities. It tries to estimate benefit versus time and energy used. Takes a decision. The emotions are the carriers of the decision. So it's not that the emotions don't tell you what to do. They do. But the decision has already been made, and the emotions are the carriers that bring it into action. So the modern scientific understanding of emotions, Lisa Feldman Barrett and so on, they say that emotions are constructions. So basically, the brain wants to go in some directions and constructs an emotion to get you into this direction. And thoughts are basically carried by emotions and by the same underground mechanism. The main benefit of I Grow Younger, with its like focus on neuroscience and biology and evolutionary biology, is that if you apply some positive pressure to get them into a positive direction, to the balance of left and right brain hemisphere, and to astrocytes, and to your balance of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Basically, intrinsic motivation is your blankets, and extrinsic is seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, and these two inhibit each other. So you have a few spectrums that are unbalanced, because left and right brain is an unbalanced spectrum, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is an unbalanced spectrum, and being in hunter and sheep mode is also unbalanced. This is about hormones in the body. Are you running away from something, or are you chasing something in life? So all of these are very unbalanced spectrums. So you get stuck in one, the good or the bad. It's very important how, when you're stuck in the bad, to get to the good. And this is why the forest, these high amplitude models with the adrenaline and the unconventional stuff, they help, because you need to get from one pit to the other, and you need to climb this mountain of like energy and meaning and basically driving forces in the brain. So in I Grow Younger, we don't deal a lot with emotions. For one reason, because emotions are already quite explored. For another reason, that categorizing emotions, labeling, is a very left brain thing. We try to avoid this approach to life in general, because it does not bring deep intuition. And emotions, if they're really just carriers, then we should know what causes the emotions, so they can carry us somewhere. And once the emotion is there, if it's good, great. If it's bad, just mindfulness and try to let it pass. Most emotions disappear in 90 seconds. So basically, emotions are just the carriers. And thoughts, I think it depends, but I think the cycles of thoughts and emotions, they either go in upward spirals or downward spirals. If it's a downward spiral, if it's overthinking, if it's rumination, you have to cut it. Basically, this is the worst thing, overthinking. You have to cut it. Just start doing something else, distract yourself, whatever. Like, there are no bad decisions if you cut it. And if it's positive, just let it flourish. Yes?
On your website, you mentioned about the game of life and the game of self. And for example, you were talking about, like, if you have a good understanding of the game of life, you can perhaps start a successful business. You can choose a good industry to start your business, whereas the game of self is a little different. How do those two fit into what you discussed?
So the game of life is everything outside of your head, and the game of self is in your head. The major difference is in that the game of life, you have the real stuff in front, and in the game of self, you have also the blankets. And because the blankets are there if you believe they are there, basically it's fake it till you make it, but it's more like directly make it, the game of self is very subjective. So there's no real truth. It's like a painting that you paint in real time always. So it's all about the differential equations, the charts going higher, the game of self. While the game of life is more about structure, resources, and keeping in touch with reality. So in the game of life, structure is unavoidable because life is very structured. In the game of self, if you manage to avoid structure, it will be much better. For example, something happens in the game of life, let's say a number, okay, you go to an exam and get a B. This B is real in the real world, but if you let this B in yourself to impact your self-worth, you're doing yourself a disservice. And so, life is full of numbers. It's very important that all numbers in the game of life, you divide it into two categories. If the numbers are not about you, then get them into the game of self, get them into your intuition, get deep understanding, evaluate stuff, evaluate money flows, build a business, everything. If the numbers are about you, kick them out. Your age, your salary, your net worth, all of these are meaningless numbers. You should just kick them out. I don't know the percentage of equity share I have in my own company. That's how far extreme I have gone to kicking out of my life numbers related to me. Because we are not evolved to handle those well, and they cannot bring anything positive, only negatives. So, like, I don't know how much my phone costs, just I tell my assistant to buy a phone, she buys a phone. Like, whenever, I don't know how much rent I'm paying, every number that somehow is related to me, I have kicked out of my life. And this is an extremely counterintuitive, unnatural, but very good practice. And in the game of self and game of life is this duality between how to stay in touch with reality, but whenever part of realities are about you, so your, let's say, reflection in the real world, then be very careful which one you bring inside, because you bring the structure of the real world in you, and it boxes out, and it becomes boxes in, and that's the real trap.
Thank you.
Yeah?
On the topic of systems earlier, you said something like, systems are boxes, so you should get rid of them. But do you think your approach will still work if it wasn't for the systems that are just there that we take for granted, like you tap your card and you buy stuff in the groceries, because that's the foundation to even think about flows, you know?
I'm not anti all systems, clearly, as you said, a good example. The thing is that systems are made for the tribe. So logic in general and knowledge and everything is good for the tribe much more than it is for the individual human. And we should very well be careful for the systems not to have our reflection inside us and become boxes. So this is very tricky. For example, money is a flow, but sums of money are boxes. So if you think of money as a flow, it's good for mental health. And if you think of, I want to have $100,000, it's bad for mental health. And it's the same thing, it's still money. So this is very tricky. And when you deal with systems, if you can just enjoy the benefits of the system without it creating boxes in you, it will be great. But as you know, the left brain, this is a slippery slope, so it's easy to get, let's say, addicted to the boxes. Because if, let's say, you trade stocks or currencies, and you interact with the system, the problem is that the system is boxy, and it's very easy to get addicted. While it's very hard to get addicted to a flow, and it's, let's say, you could get probably addicted to being in unconditional love or something, but it would not be a bad thing. It would be a good thing, a thing that you cannot overdo. And yes, obviously the world has come to some very great systems, and we should all be thankful for them because they allow the outsourcing and for us to focus on the flows. but it took a long time, so we should not give the credit to the left brain that the left brain wants, because it took more than 1.5 millennia from Aristotle for us to discover cells and bacteria. So imagine how slow systematic science really is. Like, it took 1,500 years for Aristotle asking a lot of the right questions in science to getting even most basic answers. This is how like shallow and difficult and prone to error human logic is. So these structures, basically the structure of the ATM started with Aristotle or someone before him. It was so slow to get there. Like, we absolutely appreciate where we are, but it does not mean that the approach was super successful. Maybe this is how we can differentiate. So we live in a great time in history in regard to technology, but it does not mean that technology will not be better if you used more intuition.
Quick question.
Yeah.
How do you define the difference between intuition and craving? When the body wants to do something, like want to eat a cake, and the intuition, can you hear the intuition that this is not a good idea, for example?
So intuition is out of space and time. It's your brain itself. So whenever you have a craving or fear or like strong emotions, intuition gets covered with stronger stuff, and then it's silent. You cannot hear it. It's like a whisper. All of your cravings, all of your emotions are like strong waves shouting. Intuition is like a whisper. It's always there, but you can only hear it when there's silence, when there is space, when it's calm. But it's always there in time. So you should be hearing from time to time. In terms of the cravings, intuition can tell you that you today will be you tomorrow, and tomorrow will be today. So if you overeat or overdrink or do something that's bad for your health, you can feel intuitively that tomorrow you will be sorry. So it's like an intuition about the progress of time. And this is actually the only way to stop your biological cravings, because they are good today, bad tomorrow. You know that they are bad tomorrow because you have been there many times. Like you ate the chocolate and then the next day you didn't feel that well. So these patterns are there. The important thing is to somehow train yourself to listen to the patterns, because you know the right answer, not to the craving. And also the intuition can be used to make constructions about the chocolate not to be there in the first place. So if you do the construction not to buy chocolate, then you won't have this problem. Because the problem is when the chocolate is in front of you. If it's there in the store and you need to get dressed and get out to get it in the store, you need a much stronger craving to actually get the chocolate. So every extrinsic motivation stuff, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, it's all can be woven into these constructions. And these constructions you can only build intuitively, with intuition about yourself, structure, time. Yes?
I think you mentioned safety and uncertainty.
Yes.
So I think uncertainty is a given. We do anything for it. And safety, we try to create a worse sense of safety than the real safety. So I was wondering what you mean by safety, or how you would achieve that.
Safety, I meant in a purely biological sense. So if you have today 3 Zoom calls with no breaks between and no preparation time, most people will feel extremely stressed in modernity, so they would feel basically unsafe, even though they're at home, in front of the computer, there's no physical danger, it's just our biology against us. So safety in terms of biology is totally not related to our actual physical safety. We feel unsafe every time we feel stressed. So if we have good monitoring of the reactions of our body, because stress and unsafeness is felt in the body, then we'll be able to see in which situations we are stressed. And although logically saying to ourselves, well, this is not actually stressful, might not help, having this data for our intuition will help bring constructions that will actually help us in this regard. And these constructions may be of any kind. For example, if 3 calls a day is stressful, try 7. There are 2 possible outcomes. Either it will be an epic fail, and you'll have exposure therapy for failure, or the 7 calls will somehow all go well, and you, every time you have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, you'll be like, ah, piece of cake, I already did 7. So you can do these constructions, just try something different every day. If something causes you stress, you should not have ever the same situation in the same day like it. Construct something different. It can be one way, it can be another. Just experiment, play with life. Life is like a playground. So these constructions would help with this, and eventually you will start feeling safe every time where you're actually physically safe, and you will have alignment between your biology and your everyday life. And uncertainty is basically given in modern life, but some people so desperately try to get certainty, and they have the tools of modern life to try to have it, so they achieve it in spite of everything. So this is a trap, I think. For example, if you do something very structured in order to get certainty, then you will achieve it, and that's a problem. That's why goals are not good, because you can achieve them. Goals are basically structured certainty. And I think that getting in this middle zone with feeling safe but not knowing what's going to happen in the next moment, it can become an instinct. And it becomes an instinct when you start rotating in the positive cycle of feeling more safe, allowing myself more uncertainty, allowing more chaos in my life, dealing well with the chaos, then feeling even safer, then allowing myself even more uncertainty, then even more chaos comes into my life, I still handle it well, and you go into this upward spiral. And basically, if your spiral goes down, nature has a natural reset mechanism. It's called sleep. You sleep, next day it's better. So you can allow yourself chaos and uncertainty because sleep resets the bad stuff that happens, the good stuff, you have a chance for it to remain. Yes?
How do you know for those blankets that you keep if they were not given to you by some ideologies, if you can't use intuition as an answer?
Well, a certain mark of ideologies is beauty. No ideology will survive if it doesn't have beauty. So look at all the religions. You could look at communism, all beautiful utopia, think we'll all be equal and well, like brotherhood stuff. Everything that is evolutionarily successful as an ideology has beauty integrated, and it will have carrots and sticks, so it will pull both on your love buttons and your fear buttons. Well, the blankets, they just are. I think it's quite a different thing. The blankets are just are. They are part of you. They're there. You may use them, then you have good, joyful life. You may not use them. They're still there in the right part of your brain, just the left part is running the party at the moment, so you're not using the benefits. But the blankets are always there. You have magic in you 24/7, just part of the time it's mothballed, not used. And this is actually scientifically accurate. So rewiring of the brain is magic, but you do not rewire your brain most of the time. This is because of astrocytes, state, left brain domination, over-reliance on extrinsic motivation, measuring progress, all of this. But the ideologies, most people use them as coping. And as coping, they may work for a while. Basically, religions, ideologies, and the hammer are all in the same category. You can use them to do something temporary, fix stuff, they give you stuff, but you would not want to carry a hammer with you to the rest of your life. It just doesn't make sense. So it's not that all religions and ideologies are all bad. They have their uses, they have helped a lot of humanity for millennia while life was so bad that you needed this coping. But in modern age, they are not needed, and it becomes a trade-off. So you can use temporarily, and then the thing is, will you be able to let them go, because they're very sticky.
If there are more questions.
Okay.
I have 10,000 more questions.
Let me show you where you can follow me and I Grow Younger, because I'm sure that you would want some more great content. And the stuff we missed, we'll do another event about. Whoop. Oh, did I miss it? How did I get back? Okay, whatever. Just Google my name. It's unique. Or scan this QR code. I Grow Younger or my name in Google is enough to find me everywhere. We have really amazing stuff. There is a reason why other things like this don't exist, because we are very much anti-culture and from my personal financial standpoint also anti-money. Yeah, so feel free to talk with me and here and then in the restaurant. Thank you.